Welcome, everyone, to the Garden of Thought. We are proudly presented by the Sports Jedi Network, the Sports Jedi Media Network on YouTube now, hopefully temporarily, but, get the original channel back, but maybe permanently. If you have a moment, subscribe to both just to be safe. Also, the Wrestling Soup Network and my own little platforms, the Garden of Thought. This is the crossover event, maybe of, I don't know, maybe of all time. And we have from the Soup Network and a man that I've seen in live streams and chats. I don't know, like there must be like 17 of him to do this. It is Rams Fan. He's from the Wrestling Soup and Friendos Network. He does Soup du Jour on his YouTube channel and on Wrestling Soup and Friendos, where he reviews SmackDown with Jeff Uso, a different Jeff, probably a false Jeff, certainly an evil Jeff, which I appreciate being Dose Evil. By the way, I am Dose Evil or Evil Dose, depending on which side of the Hermetic upside down you are, if you're above or below. Jeff Lippman, for those of you who don't or only know my alter ego. And this is Rams Fan. Rams Fan, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
They love you, dude. Wow. Introduce yourself.
Yes. Oh, I got a bio. Forgive me, by the way, chat, for my Sunday morning eyes. I woke up 2.5 hours ago, and I'm still trying to wake up. And I got sensitive eyes, so yeah. Look at this. But anyways, about me. So yes, I wish I knew how many podcasts I had under my belt. I've been going live on YouTube with the other Jeff, as we call him, the real Jeff Uso. Yeah. We go live with SmackDown Soup du Jour. And we've been doing that since January. It was originally just audio only. And now we're audio and video. And also streaming on X. And
Wow.
Shout out to familiar faces in the chat. But really quick about me. I've been doing podcasts for a long time now, but it hasn't been a weekly thing until recently. I started off doing Twilight Zone podcasts with shout out to Matt Luke Sci-Fi Sanctuary. Podcastius. They were covering Twilight Zone and all its variations for a while, and that's how I got my start. And now I'm doing shows like this and other wrestling shows, and also about me, I wrote 11 children's books. I'm a marine biologist. I've worked for NASA. I have I've been a lawyer in my spare time. I work pro bono though, and no, none of that is true. I am not an important person. I've been retired on disability for a long time. So podcasting comes easy to me, I guess, because I got a lot of time to do it. Excited to be on the show, man.
Hold on, you went full George Costanza on us. The sea was angry that day, my friends. So I appreciate having a podcast veteran as yourself. I don't appreciate the tease, because one of the things I've been looking to have on the show is a marine biologist. I have already decided what my final shows will be whenever they are. And one of them would be a marine biologist specifically talking about the octopus, octopi, octopuses, which is proper, which isn't, all things octopus. Anyway, so Rams Fan proposed the topic, and he's like, let's talk about mythological creatures, monsters that are portrayed in the media, and let's talk about how they're portrayed in the media and the backstory to them, or really wherever the conversation takes us. And I'm like, cool idea. I'm like, when he's like, we'll each pick 6, and hopefully we'll get through all of them today. If it goes too long and we're both with him, maybe we'll just cut it into 2 shows. I don't know, at least not for the audio, not the live stream. We're not going to cut it. But we each made our list. We made sure that we didn't have any of the same creatures. And without further ado, guest privilege. You pick the first creature and tell us why you picked the creature and then what you think.
Well, might as well get the longest one out of the way. And forgive me sometimes, folks, too, if I got to go off camera a little bit and I got to read my notes because, again, my poor eyes. So I don't want to be like, no. So if I go off camera a little bit, it's to read some notes. But I chose Djinn, and I'm going to butcher a lot of words on the show, by the way. So,
just say a gin, like the alcohol beverage. That's safe.
Yeah, gin. The D, we don't pronounce the D, huh?
You can go to gin if you want, but the gin is or Jenny or Genie. Basically all have become the same thing, though you can make a pretty good argument that they're portrayed differently, and just a
Yes.
sort of a giant multi-millennia game of telephone, so to speak, or operator.
I chose them because they really, and especially when I started doing, I literally got like almost 2 pages of research on them written down. I could add more, but you ever seen the movie Wishmaster?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. I always loved those horror movies, even though the sequels got pretty bad. The first one was pretty fun, but that was a representation of Jinn. So, and we'll get to which variation that is later, because not all jinns grant wishes and stuff like that. Some do, some don't. And some take forms of like creatures and humans. Some don't. But I don't think it's like the movie where you cut the dude's face off and you put the face on and it just, or maybe it is. I don't know. Like, but anyways, real quick, just going to go off camera so I can see these notes. Oh, okay. Am I still here?
I hear you.
Okay, sweet. I thought I'd have a little avatar if I was off camera. Okay. So
you do that rock golem thing.
The Jinn are created from smokeless fire, and parts of Arabian and Islamic folklore say they have the ability to choose good or evil, unlike angels. And they're also one of the three what's the word I'm looking for here, Jeff? Because there's angels, there's humans.
What divine? I would say they're semi-divine.
Starts with a C, I think it was called. Starts with like a C word.
I don't know. I'm not sure what word you're looking for, but don't worry about it. It'll come to you.
Okay, but yes, and then like people say, unlike angels, they have the ability to choose good or evil. And what I'm also finding out when I've looked up these things, there's many different. Like each religion and each mythology has like their own variations. So like, excuse me, I got so many notes on here. I got to try to find the right one.
Okay. I mean, I think that anyone who's a long-time listener to the show knows that that's sort of my journey, has discovered that too. And part of the fun of the show when I have experts on is that sometimes I'm right about the variation. Sometimes I'm wrong about, I see too much of the variation when it's not exactly the same thing. Or sometimes it's something that's morphed over time and space. And a lot of times because of the environmental needs, but also the historical times. I mean, we all like to pretend that things are fixed in time, and that's not the case. They're definitely not. So by now, hopefully you found the note that you're looking for and you can pick it up.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes. And but I wanted to go over the 5 different types, and these are where I'm gonna butcher some words here. There's 5 different types of jinn. There's Marid, M-A-R-I-D, which is often depicted as the most powerful, with immense strength, magical abilities, and is associated with water. Known for their pride and arrogance, and these are the ones that typically grant wishes. But like you have seen in the Wishmaster movies, they come at a great cost. And then the second different variation is would you pronounce it as Ifrit? I-F-R-I-T?
Ifrit, I'd probably say, but I don't know that I'm right.
Okay. They are fiery and known for their wrath and destructive power. They're also rebellious, dangerous, and they dwell in ruins and isolated places for some reasons. And they're also depicted in this book called 1001 Nights. Which, have you ever heard of that book, Jeff?
Yeah, it is a misnomer where it's called 1001 Arabian Nights. It really should be 1001 Babylonian Nights. But yeah, I mean that's where Aladdin comes from.
Yeah, I know the Bugs Bunny version. The Looney Tunes version.
Yeah, of course, a modern classic. I mean, it's up there with Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
And then Oh, we can't talk about that movie. That's got controversy right now. We can't talk about that.
Well, I can't talk about it because I haven't seen it. So.
Things weren't depicted the right way, supposedly. Oh my God, Hollywood doesn't depict something the right way. God forbid.
Well, there is no right way. I mean, it's hundreds of years of oral traditions that were performed countless different ways. So, I mean, it's who you interpret it through. But and I only know this because I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts which were on it. I mean, it's not coincidental that the podcasts are covering it because of the movie, but it is coincidental that it was on, like, say, The Daily and The Ancients, and then and I actually recently read. Now, when I say read, I generally mean listen to the audiobook, The Odyssey, within the last several months. It's interesting. It's a thing. I also listened to the Iliad, and I don't know. Anyway, you're right. We're not going to talk about those things. We'll stop.
And then the next one is the Shaitani, Shaitani.
Right, the Shaitan, which is sometimes thought of as a demon, and some people think that's where the word Satan comes from.
Yes.
It's probably not. It's probably just a trick of phonetics.
Yes. And they're the ones that like to lure humans into the trap with temptations, and they serve no one. Like, they're not one of the genies that you can summon and be like, grant my. They're all out for themselves. They're the most power hungry one, probably. Well, which may be why they may or may not be closely linked to Satan. Ghoul, Ghul, Ghoul. No.
I don't know. I'd have to learn.
You know what?
Arabic
You know what, Jeff? I've seen you bring up a lot of words on this show, and it's about time buddy, because I have questions and you better have answers.
Listen, I'm just happy that you're bringing up words that I haven't heard. This is great.
Okay, and
I rely on the guest to be the expert, and you're not disappointed.
This one is thank you, Internet. This one is associated with graveyards and desert wastelands, which is kind of cool.
Also makes sense that if it is pronounced ghoul, that it would, the word has sort of survived.
Mm-hmm. This one is the shapeshifters that take form of animals, and they like to lure humans into traps, and they also like to eat the flesh of the living or the dead.
Is that the ghoul also?
Yes.
Okay, so listen, we have an old fashioned, sort of zombie skinwalker kind of thing, like a revenant.
And then this one is considered to be the weakest. The Janni, Janni, considered to be the weakest form.
Well, it's the middle sister. Sure, Jan.
It's aligned with nature and said to be nomadic and often just wandering the deserts. And it acts way more kind to humans than any of the other jinns.
Oh, the weakest is the closest to man. It's interesting, these descriptions you gave us, because they sort of sound semi-demonic in the way certain demons are presented. It's also very interesting, the first one that you mentioned, associated with water, grants wishes, but can be bargained with, or it's just moody. Sometimes it's against you, sometimes it's for you. Standard chaos agent, but also reminds me of the exact description of the Grootslang from African mythology, which is basically a serpent that lives in a cave in water. Now, the Grootslang can especially be bargained with gold and stuff like that, but you can also tell it a good story or whatever, and it sounds a little bit like the first one. But it's so fire and smoke. So angels are supposed to be fire and water. So this is distinct, but they're not divine. Angels are divine. But in some of the Apocrypha, there are angels that have some of the attributes of more chaos agents and these jinn, which leads me to believe that maybe the jinn were taking the place of maybe some gods in certain pantheons. Maybe they were lesser gods, maybe not. A lot of times when a religion comes into place, you sort of absorb some of what they've already got going on and just put your own name or spin on it. And Maybe that happened. I don't know the order of what, who came first. But, certainly the Greeks had tons and tons of gods, and, well, everyone did. But it is very interesting. But yeah, they're immortal, but they're not divine. But also there are demons in Islam. But the jinn is probably the only monster creature that I think we're going to talk about that's in holy books. So jinn are part of Islamic canon. So if you are a devout Muslim, you believe that jinn exist every much as well as you believe that angels exist, probably demons, and of course God, Allah.
Yeah. This one, we got a few Islamic ones on my list, but and then later when we get to golems, those are actually in 2 passages of the Bible, I guess.
Yeah,
they're actually big. So I didn't know that, but I guess that would it make sense though when we get to golems later. That's because that's a whole Jewish, so it makes sense they'd be in the Bible, right? That's a whole Jewish tradition.
I suppose. I mean, the most famous golem is sort of more of Middle Ages, Renaissance. Within the last 500 years, the Golem of Prague, which is much more recent. But yeah, I mean, building something from dust or mud is as old as creation stories, and we only know the ones that are written down and from whence they came. But I mean, if you skip the whole Adam and Eve thing being made from dust or clay, Enkidu in Gilgamesh was also made from, I think, clay or sand, and he was basically a beast man that was tamed, that was supposed to teach Gilgamesh a lesson and kill him, but instead they became best friends after Gilgamesh tamed old Enkidu, one with a prostitute and then with a Thing versus Hulk epic fight where Gilgamesh won, but they decided they respected each other and would have much more fun together than apart.
Interesting. But I jumped a little bit ahead. We got to go real back to the jinn real quick. Right. You said in a text to me in Discord, what is it? Koran. These are one of the Koran type gods, is it? And you had something you wanted to elaborate on that. And the word I was looking for earlier too. This is one of the 3 sentient creations, along with angels.
Sentient. Yeah. Sentient. Right. They have thoughts of their own. And I think actually you covered that really well when you described the 5 motives of them. And my theories, I think I touched on them a little bit, but I will say that because angels, obviously the Old Testament is older than the Quran. I mean, I know that if you go to the scripture of the Christians, everything was always Christian. It's just the people didn't know they were Christian. And the Quran is the same thing. Everything was always Islam. Everyone was always Muslim. You just didn't know that you were until after the Quran was written as Jibril or Gabriel dictated. Anyway, so seraphim are a class of angels. And if you talk to 100 different people, you might get 100 different versions of what is the seraphim and what are the different hierarchies of angels, and same with demons, and even what seraph means. I've heard 2 things: that it means serpent or flying serpent. I've also heard burning ones. Whichever J.J. Johnson from Southern Demonology tells you is the correct pronunciation, correct definition is it. He's a multi-time guest on the show. But if you go by burning ones, I think that the jinn can easily be put into taking the seraph, the burning one, and a lot of things that religions, especially conquering, and by conquering I don't necessarily mean by the sword, I mean sort of overtaking the region and influence, do is they sort of take your gods and your heroes and turn them into villains or something lesser. And so if you take the seraph, which are very powerful angels, and you turn them into, you don't eliminate them entirely, but you turn them into something less than, the memory of the people, it's still there. The stories are still there. It's something they could recognize, but now it's like, it's still something to be feared and respected, but it doesn't interfere with their worship of the new order of things, or what's old is new, or but the Holy Quran. So I think that the Seraph, the burning one part of it, is part of it, and there's probably other gods and other pantheons that have been there as well, which play into this also. By the way, I always talk about the show Evil, and there's a jinn in that peeks itself out every now and then, and it's actually a deliciously, subtly juicy show. And regrettably, I might have to get to Paramount Plus so I can finally see season 4 of it, because Netflix.
Oh, I got Paramount Plus, so I could check that out.
Well, you're not me, so so that doesn't help me any. Anyway, I'm sorry, I have nothing else really on the gym, because I think you covered it beautifully.
I just want to wrap it up real quick. I just want to get to its strengths and weaknesses, and point out one thing that I was fascinated to learn. Chat, maybe you would fascinate to learn this. Shout out to the chat, by the way. The Aladdin from genie from Aladdin is a jinn.
Yeah, well, all genies are jinn. The Aladdin that we see that is made like many sort, been Disneyfied, sort of.
Yeah, obviously he's not going to betray Aladdin with his wishes. Like he's going to make them all good.
But we did see times where Aladdin could be terrible. I mean, so. You could easily see someone making Aladdin into more of a horror thriller kind of thing, and you could, except the deal is once you're done with the 3 wishes, you're done. I mean, you're done with the genie. Now, I don't know what happens if your 3rd wish is give me more wishes, or turn me into something as powerful as you, and then they could go around being best friends, worst enemies. Who knows? Any of you, if you see a genie and you don't know what to do on your last wish, try either of those things, I suppose, if you're so inclined. But yeah, the genies, definitely genie, including I Dream of Genie, has evolved from the jinn, but obviously it's been sort of made friendly, as time goes on. You try to scare the kids from going into the woods, and I guess as the world gets a little bit safer, now you want it to be sort of friendly and something that's fun. See?
So real quick, I know you touched on your strengths, but I guess because I think we've touched on these, but I'll still go over them. Their strengths are immense power, free will, and immortality, like you brought up earlier. Mortality, unless it's the movies, the Wishmaster move, then he gets got, but he always comes back. His weakness is susceptibility to control, and divine weakness. What would divine weakness be?
Well, that they're not divine, so I imagine something that's divine could in fact smite them. The susceptibility to control is interesting, because in some cases they're even susceptible to control by humans, which sort of goes with the creation story of man, that sort of everything on earth is sort of our playground. We're supposed to take care of it or use it as we will, which is interpreted in about 1,000 different ways. But if they're not divine, they're arguably subject to man. It's just their powers that keep them a little bit above us, but they're not really above us. They're sort of parallel. I once had people who point out the difference to me between paranormal and supernatural. And paranormal is they exist with us on this plane. Supernatural is something that's above us. And well, I think that was overly simplifying things, and in the strict contours of the word, they were correct. But yeah, I think that this. I don't have much to add on Jay. I mean, that was a great message.
Their final weakness is their pride and hubris. Is hubris your ego? Is that your ego?
Well, I mean, it's sort of your ego unchecked, the pride where you don't think that you can fall. Like the Greek heroes were known for their hubris. But not just them. Like even Prometheus he was a Titan, and he had hubris, and he got punished by Zeus eternally. As far as we know, right now, there's an eagle pecking out his liver someplace, depending on which pantheon was correct. He was also a friend of man, so I don't know what the lesson there is in that. So I guess it's my turn.
Yep, it's you, sir.
I didn't do the research that you did. I don't apologize for it. Too bad. My first choice was Trolls, and Trolls to me, I mean, and forget about the little monsters with the Don King hair. I'm not talking about the kids' toys. That's nothing. That's unimportant.
You're not talking about the '90s fad or whatever it was.
That's right. They'll probably be coming back again. I mean,
You
what's a
all had
lob
one.
without
You
a
had
lob?
one, Jeff. You all. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over. Everybody had
One,
one.
I'm sure I had several. I mean, didn't everyone have things hanging from there? I mean, I did have kids. I mean, I still have kids. They're just not children anymore, or little kids. They grew. Never mind. People understand how time works. Kevin, the producer, wanted me to mention how there's internet trolls. And so trolls sort of, they're sort of Germanic and Norse, Northern European, sort of. We have the Tolkien versions where they sort of live in the woods. They can only survive at night. The sun comes up, they turn to dark. There are also mountain trolls, so that they're associated with sort of terrain that humans don't usually live in. Be afraid of the dark, be afraid of nature, the perils of nature. In the movie Troll, they're almost like a King Kong thing, but it's almost like environmental, respect nature, or you're going to unleash its terrible wrath as a metaphor. But I think the most iconic trolls are sort of the trolls. They live under the bridges, and they eat goats. If they don't eat goats, they'll eat what's available to them, which might involve people. And so, I mean, they are a boogeyman, but they're a huge boogeyman that's made up of rock and wood and bark and things where there's no apparent weakness, and they can't be killed by normal means, or at least not that I'm aware of, unless you buy into if you keep them out past sunrise, like a vampire. They, unlike burning up, they turn to stone, and then of course they're dead forever. And they are immortalized in mountain ranges and features of that nature. But I don't know what I just thought that they were interesting because they are. Everyone uses the word troll, but they seem to be like the stepchild of the redheaded stepchild of monsters. They're barely brought up, and they've sort of remained a little bit like as a children's story, as opposed to the Djinn who become both children's story and religious canon. And there's never been a Disney movie about a troll. I mean, there's movies about ogres.
Oh yeah, no, the movie I'm thinking of was the troll you don't want to be it. The hair, the Don King hair. I think that was the troll movie that came out. So yeah, you're right. Oh, hang on, no, wasn't there a famous '80 movie called Troll?
Yeah, no, there's Troll Hunter, and then there was, but like these are like Scandinavian movies, so it's like they're King Kong, and
wasn't like Troll 2 notoriously bad or something?
Okay, so there was definitely a Troll 2, like an old movie, like sort of when the Leprechaun movies are coming up, and then there's the one that's more recent. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was there's a picture of a troll for those of you who are on the yeah, and even there it looks a little King Kongish. Obviously in Lord of the Rings we had the mountain troll, which was sort of a mindless beast that can barely be contained even by the orcs and goblins, and super strong and super big, but could be killed. But part of the fellowship, they were also kind of magic, and they'd sting the elven weapon, and there was an elf there, and so Tolkien was almost like the Greek Age of Heroes and sort of the Anunnaki phase, where sort of the transition between when gods also walked amongst men on Earth before they sort of transitioned and turned over the reins completely to men, and that's sort of the Old Testament as well. I mean, is sort of in that area, though that might be considered blasphemy, but I don't care. I'm a blasphemer. I'm a heretic. What do you think about trolls? Or my heresies?
I want to know, like, what did the internet forum troll really looks like? What are they depicted as? And then, you said they were created out of wood and stuff. Like, what were they created out again? Some of them.
like they're made of all things that are hard and natural, like rocks and mountains and wood. I mean, there's tufts of grass and but their skin is like stone and bark, and they're basically a part of nature come to life in some hungry, you know, way, but they're basically scavengers unless they need to be something else. I mean, it's sort of like a bear. If you anthropomorphized a bear, it could be a troll, but if you gave it like rhinoceros skin,
Yeah.
that's my interpretation anyway.
Yeah, like a hardened skin. But and then like I agree with you, like not only for like the Don King hair, but like I've seen trolls depicted like as friends of kids and goofy, and like we're gonna get to ogres pretty soon. I feel like that's a good lead in since we just did trolls. When that would be the next one I cover.
I think they're cousins.
Yeah, they could be cousins or redheaded stepchildren or redheaded step cousins. But yes, trolls I've seen much like ogres just get depicted in childlike manner more than in the scary manner. But now all the millennials know, not the millennials, but what are we in now? Gen Z or whatever it's called. The social media generation.
Yeah, social media to start with millennials, but I think we are at Gen Z. Yeah,
they're all going to associate the troll that we're thinking of, troll, like internet troll. That's what for some reason that's all we're going to think about now is internet troll.
Well, yeah, but the internet troll is someone who's lurking there to just attack you. I mean, it's the same metaphor, so it almost makes sense. I mean, in ages past, it could be a bandit. You could say internet bandit. Anything like a pirate. But no, troll. It's more fun.
Should we go to ogres now?
Sure.
Or ogresses, or ogre, as the children are called. They're the ogre. But yes, let me. It comes from a French word.
I should just add that there are trolls in Norse mythology, Norse stories, which is, I mean, sort of Northern Russian, Slavic, Germanic, Norse, and some of Celtic mythology is extremely similar, if not identical. But yeah, go ahead, ogre. Yeah, it's like Favre. So yeah, French.
There's we're gonna come up with another god in this too. The word ogre is French origin, derived from the name of the Etruscan god, Etruscan. Etruscan, okay.
The first Romans, the pre-Romans.
Oh, the pre-Romans, okay. Which are a rich polytheistic pantheon that are heavily influenced by Roman mythology. So hang on, if it was before so it was before the Romans, but the Romans make stories of them, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, because that confused me for a second.
I don't know where the French word comes in from that. I mean, obviously the Romans, occupied what they called Gaul for a long time, which is modern day France, or most of it, if not all of it, and Germania, which I think they called it Alemannia, or no, they called it Germania. But was French a language then? I suppose. I don't know, but I suppose it must have been at least some form of French. So yeah, ogre, French word.
They also appear in Greece mythology and Greece mythology and Norse mythology. Ogres are often known as gluttony, associated with gluttony. And I forgot to write down the definition of gluttony. What is gluttony again?
You like to eat a lot. It's like greed specific to food.
Is that one of the deadly sins, or?
It sure is one of the 7 deadly sins. It's one of the many that I have.
I know, me too. Oh yes, my bad gluttony. But it says right. So I guess I did write it. Yes, insatiable appetites, insatiable appetites, and they often get depicted in fairy tales, and they're known for being like one of their weaknesses, especially in the fairy tales, is they're stupid. They come off as stupid.
Trolls are pretty stupid too. I mean, it's not, they can be outwitted, which is, I mean, some of the jinn also had that. I mean, I don't think that's so unusual that things can be outwitted by, the divine spark of intelligence that the gods put in humans. But yeah, ogres, I think, are closer to men. They're sort of like gorilla men, I mean, although gorillas get a bad rap, but it's sort of like maybe some memory of a more primitive man. Maybe it's just a myth that we always have that something in the past was worse than we were. But yeah, the ogre. I mean, the most famous ogre, of course, is Shrek, who changed everything. But basically, was a giant, strong, simple, and that's sort of what an ogre is. He's a giant, but not like Jack and the Beanstalk giant. Though maybe they got smaller over time.
And what
were the ogres called in Greek mythology, though? What were the words that were used for them, or do you know, or in any of the mythology?
Passed it up, I didn't write it down. I just know the ogre for the offspring and the ogress for the women. So I don't know each different term. Yeah, did you know?
Ogren. Here, please here's my Ogren. His little Shrek Jr. and Shrekette.
I know. Now the movie, like the new movie in Shrek, he has like 4 or 5 kids now or something. Like
there's a new Shrek movie?
One of his kids, oh yeah, we're going there,
Well, yeah, that's great. But one of the nice things about having your kids grow up is that they grow up.
Yeah.
One of the sad things about your kids growing up is that they outgrow wrestling like normal people, while you haven't. I'm friends with PJ Black. He was Justin Gabriel. We know, Dad.
Yeah,
that's great.
Hey, we both watched Lucha Underground, sir. Okay, I know exactly who he was.
I know, kids. Don't you think? Doesn't that make me cool? No, not really. Yeah. It was interesting the first time, Dad.
And fun fact, according to my buddy's children, when they were growing up, I was Shrek. So that's why I bought this Shrek doll for my buddy's daughter. I just have to give it to her still.
Yeah, I was wondering, if you bought your buddy's daughter, what are you doing with it?
I have yet to give it. I haven't met up with him yet to give it to him since I bought it. I bought it last time I went to the movies.
We have all bought a gift for somebody, and we're like, I'd sort of like to keep this, but it's not usually something like a Shrek doll or a plushie.
Yeah, they were selling it at the movie theater because they were doing the 25th anniversary re-release of Shrek, the first one.
Oh my goodness! So are there any stories that you encountered of ogres in any of these mythologies? It doesn't matter which one.
I just was fascinated that they were in 17 fairy tales. The one being most associated, Sleeping Beauty. I mean, I'm sure there's many Sleeping Beauties, but or no, maybe there's just one. I just want to take that back. Maybe there's just one Sleeping Beauty, but
it's an archetype.
I should have known from watching Shrek, because Shrek 1, that's just kind of like a Sleeping Beauty fairy tale almost.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, most of the fairy tales that we know come from Hans Christian Andersen and the Grimm's brothers, and all especially the Grimm's brothers. They traveled around collecting sort of fairy tales and myths and legends. And
I remember that book when I was a kid, Grimm's fairy tales and whatever.
And it's not a kid's book. I mean, what we think of fairy tales and what fairy tales meant and fairies really are entirely two different things. I mean, fairies are representing all the fae folk. They're not like all Tinkerbells, and Tinkerbells, are only one small, literally and figuratively, subset of the fairies that you think of, like sprites with wings. But they were horror stories. They were things to keep kids at home, just like Ring Around the Rosie was a way to keep kids distracted, not to worry about rose petals flying through the air because they were burning the dead from the bubonic plague.
What else? Freaking I had something else in it. Oh yeah, they're also really they love to use them in like Dungeons and Dragons, and so they were in a lot of like medieval type video games. They're like usually a monster you have to defeat.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us got our introduction to most of these monsters, as children, probably through C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, and Dungeons and Dragons.
And then I didn't know this was an actual fairy tale book. Puss in Boots. That's a story he was in. I never watched Puss in Boots. I know who Puss in Boots is from Shrek. I never watched the standalone movie. I heard it was good. But
I didn't watch it either, so I can't. Well, all I know is that.
Did you like the character though when you watched Shrek? Because I'm sure you've seen the first 2 or 3 Shreks, right?
Yeah, I saw the first 3.
Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, I just like saying Antonio Banderas. So, just and I will never not like him just because of the skits on Saturday Night Live where he was like leading a like mariachi band, and like he would unbutton his shirt and like the background people, no boss, too sexy. And I still sometimes find myself saying that, in absurd times, and nobody gets the joke. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Can't even find the GIF anymore. They used to have it, but certain GIFs get retired. It should probably tell me something, but it's just telling me people retire GIFs too early. But yeah, I did see Shrek 1, 2, and 3, but this was. Listen, I don't know if I would have seen them I saw Aladdin with friends in law school. But my kids were, young children during the Shrek, and they didn't age out by the time Shrek 3 came. But Shrek was one of those movies that there was enough in it for adults as there were for kids. So, it was fun.
No, that was like my grandpa watched the first Shrek. Like, he really didn't watch a lot of movies that were new, but he watched Shrek and had a good time when it first came out. Like,
I mean, my favorite part, not that it should surprise anybody, not that anybody should care, is when Snow White called all the animals, and she started, instead of singing her little happy song, she basically sang the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin, and all the animals attacked the castle. That, I mean, to me, that was a stroke of genius. So I will not like Shrek for that. I mean, the movies got progressively less fun.
I didn't watch, like, once they hit 3, I don't think I watched 4 or 5 or whatever we're up to now.
But I didn't even know there was a 4 and 5, or if I did, I swiftly forgot. But listen, they kick-started Eddie Murphy's second half.
Yeah, dude. Oh, you're telling me The Adventures of Pluto Nash didn't help?
If anything, it hurt. I mean, I'm sure he got paid either way, so it helped him hopefully with some investments and savings. But
yeah,
career-wise, no, definitely not. Yeah.
But
so
I guess.
Yeah, it's my turn. So I put unicorns. And mostly because everyone thinks of unicorns as something nice, and they're sort of magical, and that you can grant wishes, and you find a unicorn, it's good luck. And this, no surprise here, this is not the case. And actually, I know this part. There was a movie maybe a year and a half ago by A24 called Death of a Unicorn, I think was it, with Paul Rudd.
Oh, yes, and Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega. Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was a great movie, but it was a good movie. And its depiction of the unicorn was much truer to attitudinally than modern. But originally, it was not a beautiful monster. It didn't look like a beautiful horse and whatever. It was a terrible monster. And it probably harkens back. It probably is some sort of memory from men who megafauna, like if you've ever seen a picture of the Siberian rhinoceros, not the woolly rhinoceros, but that Siberian rhinoceros, that is a fantastic beast.
I'll have to look that up.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Maybe Kev can get a picture up here. I don't know.
If you can't find one, I saved a picture of it, and I think it was like my profile pic for a while. But I found that when you change your profile pic, people take all sorts of things from that, and get confused and don't know who you are and think you've been hacked. So I've sort of stopped doing that. But yeah, and for a while I was convinced that the Siberian rhinoceros was not just the original unicorn, but that it was also Behemoth, from the Bible, that an actual Orthodox rabbi told me killed Leviathan. But if that's the case, he was wrong, or at least his, I'll just call it order or sect or denomination, because Leviathan's still around. I mean, Leviathan, it's like one of God's final tasks will be to finally kill Leviathan. Like God keeps Leviathan around, like to sort of, every now and then practices like, kung fu fighting skills, and sometimes it's a challenge and sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, God's just playing because he's all powerful. But one of his last acts, and like Jews don't really have eschatology. There's no book of Revelation because the age of Messiah hasn't occurred yet, and so then when the age of Messiah comes, that means there'll be prophets again who will tell us about the future. But one thing we know in the end is that one of God's final tasks will be finally get rid of Leviathan. So I don't know where that rabbi came up with that from, but I've spoken to many people and I've learned that there's all sorts of different interpretations of Judaism. There you go. Look at that thing. My goodness.
Gosh.
Oh God. If
surprised I didn't see that in like a video game before, because you see a lot of different animals in video games.
Right, and that's a real animal. I mean, obviously that's a picture one, but there's one in the museum. There's where they stuffed it. I mean, and you can see how big it is. Like a man reaching his hand up is only touching like the bottom, I don't know, quarter of the horn, let alone not even coming close to the shoulder, the hump, which is just look at that beast. So. That, and then everything got smaller, like but still terrible. Like basilisks are small, dragons were small. Everything was smaller until they got bigger. The bigger things were versions of people that were bigger. Giants, cyclopses, titans, whatever. That's all fun stuff. But yeah, I want to talk about the unicorn because it comes from a terrible root, and now it's considered something fun and beautiful. And thank you to the folks at A24 who made a movie that actually showed there was, more beasts than, an intelligent beast, but more beasts, terrible. It should be respected and feared rather than, you should be traipsing around for it. Though I did do a show a long time ago with a woman named Nikki Anna Jones, which is not a real name, but she was a play on Indiana Jones. And during the course of the show, she used to have her own channel. She might still, I don't know. But shout out to her if she does. If not, to whoever the real name is. Because I don't, get into people's real names if they go by a handle. But she said that she once saw a unicorn when she was in a jungle, I think in South America. And, I'd like to believe her, but I've never seen a unicorn.
Jeff, you got to believe.
I believe that was the unicorn we're looking at in the middle there, and I believe that it's extinct. And I believe it did kill a lot of things, probably mostly in self-defense or in some sort of rage protecting its, mate or cubs or calves, whatever you call a baby woolly rhinoceros.
So I'm guessing in that death of a unicorn, this is all CGI, right? Like they didn't get a real horse and like strap a thing on its head, or how much is a unicorn even in that? Well, I guess we would get into spoilers, so maybe we shouldn't.
I mean, a fair amount, whether it's CGI or not, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I'm not a cinephile, so I'm like, you probably need to talk to the folks at Spitball Media to find out those kinds of answers. That's I mean, I probably know it when I see it, and I probably knew it while I saw it, but I was whatever it was good. It looked like that there were animals right there. I mean, it didn't look like a video game or animation, but they were sort of magical, but they were grounded. So if it didn't look 100% realistic, that wasn't going to bother me because they're not supposed to be, just a horse or just a zebra. You're one of the few people I've heard actually talk positive about that movie, though. It got panned when it came out. I heard not a lot of people really liked it. Yeah, I don't know. There are certain things. Listen, I'm famously picky. I famously hate a lot of things or dislike a lot of things that a lot of people love. But there are things I also strangely like that, like, for instance, I think Wyatt Earp is brilliant, and I thought Tombstone was average. So, I mean, that's got to be something like 97-3 against me. Listen, I'm not AEW sicko. I understand reality. I understand when I'm in the minority or something. So But I wasn't expecting anything, and I watched it at home. So I get HBO Max with my HBO, so I didn't pay anything for it. So all of that plays in. I also didn't think Suicide Squad was a bad movie. I didn't think it was a great movie, but I think it was a bad movie.
I didn't mind
okay.
either one either. Yeah, I really liked the first one. I don't know why I liked it better than the second. People seem to like the second more.
Yeah, and I didn't hate the second one, but I didn't think it was anything special. I'm not a big fan of. I mean, there have been James Gunn things that have been like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is like a perfect movie. It's fantastic, but and I don't know. I'm sure he's done other things, but most of the things he's done, I've been like, Like I didn't get very excited when he took over from Zack Snyder. James Gunn's not somebody that excites me. But he's not a mythological creature. So anyway, that's all I had on unicorns. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to it, or if you wanted to move on to your next.
I guess again they like to depict them in a lot of child stuff, like what you got bronies, or no, that's the fan of My Little Pony. What do you call it? My Little Pony.
Yeah, but there are unicorns, I think, in the My
Little
Pony universe. Yeah.
And then was Pegasus a unicorn?
No, Pegasus is not a unicorn. Pegasus was just a winged horse, but a lot of times the people combine the two to sort of make a winged unicorn. And listen, that's the nice thing about mythical creatures and chimeras. You can sort of mix and match as you like, because there's no rules. I mean, there doesn't have to be any biological internal logic. They're magic. They're from an age when gods made what they want, or they were formed at the same time of God. So the rules of physics and things don't apply. Side note: there's an author named Adrian Tchaikovsky who writes science fiction books. I'm not going to tell you that they're easy reads. I'm not going to tell you that every one of them is fantastic. But the way this man thinks about life, how it could evolve, how it could develop consciousness, how the plurality of group thinking turning into uniform thinking, sharing information, different types of evolution. It is unbelievable. And I would say it's worth reading his books for that alone. I will say this: Children of Time was a fantastic book. It was, and the second one, which I don't remember the name, was also really good. The third one, sort of felt a little bit like an episode of Star Trek, but then when he wrote a fourth one, it became evident why it was so important. And he claims he was never planning to write sequels, but now I think it's sort of like one of these never-ending things. In any event, that's just a little side note if you want to try to figure out how things actually could develop with there being rules of physics and science and logic behind them. I don't think there's anyone out there that's more creative and thinks more deeply about it and writes it in a way that you can understand better than he does. And it is a he. He's British, but and has the last name of one of my favorite classical composers. So there's that also.
So some bias in there.
Probably. Well, no. If I hated his book, I wouldn't mention it.
But now we're probably getting to the horniest one on our list.
Nice.
Satyrs.
Ah, yes, they are horny.
Or no, also known as Selenius or Celinos. I think that's what am I? Selinus or Selinos?
Or Rams fans.
Yeah. No, I do not drink wine, and I do not. Can't say the R word on here, so
wine is delicious.
What wines with grape? That's what they tend to do to women. That's
we
what
understand.
They've been depicted as. Like,
well,
they've done that to women, and they've always been depicted with erection. Not always, I guess. We will get to the part they're childlike. In some like fairy tales and other things. Like you've seen, say, I don't know if you've ever watched The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or read the book.
Both.
Yeah. The one that befriended Lucy, that was a satyr, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Yep. It was almost like her guide, almost like her psychopomp.
Yeah.
Well,
once I heard like what they do to women and stuff, I kind of like thought bad about them. Like, thank God they didn't go there. Like, they couldn't.
Satyrs, I mean, you know what? This is your segment. I'll join you.
Yeah. Okay. They're also known as a spirit, male nature spirit with ears and tails that resemble a horse. Even though as things go further along in these tales of them, they start being known more goat-like. They get more goat-like features. They start getting goat horns and goat noses, stuff like that. And again, they love their wine. And let me flip over to my other note here. They love wine, music, dancing, and women. They were companions of the god. Here's another word I'm going to butcher. Dionysus. It's D-I-N,
Dionysus.
but Dionysus. Okay.
But you can say Bacchus, the Roman version. It's easier.
But she was the god, or she or he was the god of wine, vegetation, fertility, festivity, madness, religious ecstasy, and theater.
Often
Religious
called Party
ecstasy.
Jesus.
Often called what?
Party Jesus.
Party Jesus. But yes, that another thing I found out that I didn't know too much about. Well, they have a lot of plays depicted after him, so I guess that's what the theater part. Yeah. And they're also to believe to roam such low. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied here. They were also believed to roam such remote locations as woodlands, mountains, and pastures. They try to seduce nymphs and mortal women. What are nymphs?
Nymphs are female creatures of nature that sort of are the embodiment of sort of like streams and brooks and like other like woodland elements, but like trees and flowers and like they're sort of like lesser goddesses. I would say they're more divine than the jinn, but maybe more akin to it. But nymphs are also they're also sort of all a lot of id, so like the state of nature is constant procreation to try to survive, which tells you a little bit about why the satyr is like the satyr. He's the male id, and the nymph is sort of like the female id. I believe Achilles' mother was a nymph, but she might have been a goddess. I don't know. I get confused because some goddesses are nymphs, and not all goddesses and not all nymphs are created equal. And again, these stories change over time. But yeah, I mean, listen, if you live in the woods, you're going to find a lot of wood spirits, and some of them are nymphs. And if you're a horny guy, you're looking for a horny girl. It's sort of like, if it's the 90s, you're going to go to the Jersey Shore.
You're going to the club.
You're going to go to the club.
What did Don Tony used to call those people? Cardboard cutout gangsters.
Don't invoke his name on my show.
Hey,
he gave us Kevin Castle.
He did. And then, like I was bringing up, later on they became more human-like and goat-like.
I should finish that thought. So we're thankful for that.
Yeah. R.I.P. Kev Castle.
Absolutely.
Their characteristics. Okay, this is weird. I gotta make sure I'm up to read this shit. Making sure it gets. Okay, characteristics after confrontations with Pans. Okay, so they started portraying human and godlike form after having a conflict with the Pans, and it says Pans are the god of nature, the wild shepherds, and the flocks and the mountain wilds.
Yeah, so Pan, I think at this point Pan has become interchangeable with a satyr, but Pan was sort of different. I'm not exactly sure on the how, but yeah, Pan, a god, satyrs, not exactly gods, but again, sort of like the jinn, sort of like an immortal creature, but definitely one that interacted with human and gods alike.
Mm-hmm. And then they often appear in works of fantasy and children's literature, like I brought up, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and One time there was an episode of Celebrity Deathmatch. I'm sure you know Celebrity Deathmatch, Jeff.
Of course, sure,
I'm
of
sure
course.
people in the chat know. Or they were time traveling to get time traveling to get Debbie Matenopoulos back from Napoleon, and they ended up in Roman times, and there was a satyr, and Nick Diamond had to fight a satyr, and they totally depicted as it was horny and was drunk on wine, but Nick beat it. So
I mean, yeah. Drunk goats are, I guess, easier to fight than a non-drunk goats. Goats are mean. Well, they can be.
Yeah. Angry goat.
Yeah, an angry goat. Yeah, goats. So the whole thing is sort of interesting because, everyone, goats demonic because they've got those weird eyes, and who knows why the eyes evolved that way, but it's obviously been successful because there's, whatever, 3,000 different kinds of goats and other ungulates with those kinds of, including rams. Though I don't think their eyes are like that. But no. We have to take ourselves back thousands of years. So horses weren't domesticated until like 10,000 years ago as a tool. They were game animal. They were hunted. Cattle, probably a little bit later than that. You probably needed the horses to be able to have any more than some cattle, and there were wild cattle as well. Goats, however, were the original animal that we could domesticate for food and use. Sheep, for clothes and skins and
you like goat milk? You a fan of goat milk or goat cheese or?
I have had goat cheese I like. I can't say that if I've had goat milk that I liked it. I mean, dogs, it's arguable whether we domesticated them or they domesticated us. But
I don't mind domesticated me for a while.
But having goats, that was wealth. So when you think about shepherds in like the biblical era and the pre-biblical era, you're thinking about like people now that are in Afghanistan sort of taking 20 goats across the street and cars have to wait for them, and they wander in their shredded, tattered robes with a walking stick bent over. That wasn't then. That was wealth. That was like you had the Yellowstone Ranch with all the property taxes. So and they were promiscuous animals, which is part of the success of them. I mean, especially once they were domesticated, part of what the shepherd did and the dogs did is to keep them safe from wolves. So yeah, these animals are always fucking, but these animals are always fucking because 3 out of 4 of them aren't going to make it, to year 5 because they're being taken out by foxes and wolves and cougars and lions, tigers and bears, and there were far more of those things then. And plus, they get sick.
I want to be taken out by a cougar. Don't you want to be taken? Maybe you are taken out by a cougar.
Well, back then it wasn't even a cougar; they were full-blown lions that would take them out. So these things were everywhere. So anyway, the whole horn thing was sort of come from that. I mean, that's where the word horny comes from, is because the satyrs. But meanwhile, bull was like the strongest thing. So by the time we got around to bulls were undomesticatable. So by the time the men domesticated cattle, the bulls were that was the ultimate sign of wealth because they're much bigger. And where am I going with this? The Sumerian gods were all originally depicted with horns on their heads. It was a crown. And of course, the Sumerian gods became the Babylonian, and then at some point, they became the bad guys and the defeated. And so anything with horn got sort of turned into something bad. And then we have these wood nymphs, they're busy having sex. So horny, bad, devil, bad, Satan, bad. So this is, theater, all this is, sort of bad influences on people. Yeah. But it got to the point where, that's why people were sacrificing goats, because they were valuable. You weren't sacrificing, just a silly little animal that you have at a petting zoo. You were sacrificing a big part of your wealth and your future wealth, because goats begat other goats. So it was sort of a big deal. Where was I going? Goat. But the main part was that the oldest gods that we have images of that sort of led to maybe all of the other gods that survive today, had horns on their head as a depiction of their godliness. That they were stronger than men. They had the horns, and so it's easy to see why, again, the strong becomes the anti of whatever it is. The temple of the temple of Babylon, the gardens, the palace becomes the Tower of Babel, a bad thing. And in the original story where sacrifice was given to the god, the Babylonian god picked the pastoral gifts of the seed and the grain, not the meat. In Cain and Abel, Yahweh picked the meat and rejected Cain, and which drove Cain bananas. But like a lot of these stories, like you sort of reverse the roles or the outcome, even though the stories are the same. And the horn is just one of those things. Ironically, for the Jews, that because of a depiction of Moses with a halo, which often was depicted as sun rays coming out of your head, basically like the Statue of Liberty. It was depicted as horns, and then that became a trope that Jews have horns, which still exists today. So back to the Sumerians and back to the satyr. But yeah,
do I make you horny, baby?
I guess just to close it up real quick, this one I found interesting. Pre-Islamic, they often been compared to the jinn for the pre-Islamic Arabia era. The satyrs have.
Yeah, a lot of these things. I think the nymphs also, like I'm saying, a lot of these things that are semi-divine but also immortal that can interact with people. Well, see, there you go. They represent different things, and I think that they get conscripted into different roles and different names, and you put a little spin on it. In Arabia, there less forests than there are sand and water and sandstorms and fire and electricity and static electricity and
so it's not just like a sand desert like they depicted with just trees and sand and.
Well, there's a coast. There's two. There's one on the Red Sea, and there's one on the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. So they're there, and then the Indian Ocean there below as well. So there are coasts, and the climate was very different. Even 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, and climate doesn't change overnight usually, unless tons of volcanoes erupt or a meteor strikes. So,
according to Al Gore, it does.
I don't think he told us that it was going to happen any time now. I think he accelerated the time by a few decades, but who knows? Maybe we'll tech our way out of that.
And then
different kind of doom.
One closing thought before we get to your next subject. I found it funny doing my research. They had a depicted picture of a satyr from 500 BC. And he had a full erection, and he had a wine cup sitting on top of his erection.
Damn right, very, very useful. Listen, these creatures had very specific, and they were with the Dionysus, who was about fun and free love. Sort of like a hippie, but he was also about peace. And Dionysus was only sometimes part of the 12 Olympians, not always welcome, which is why he was always wandering around having good times, and sharing his thoughts, which some people call wisdom. Some people have compared him to, sort of like Thoth, or but he's sort of a less a Loki chaos agent and more let's all be cool and have a good time kind of agent. But yeah, I think that's a good.
What's your thoughts about religious ecstasy? I don't know, that word just seems funny to me. The god of the religious ecstasy. Are you only have religious horniness, or you're attracted to religious people? What does that mean?
I would say that ecstasy is not necessarily sexual. That is maybe the simplest form of ecstasy. ecstatic states are what the prophets and what oracles were said to be in. Sort of one where you can't control your body because something else has entered into you. And so religious would mean that something divine has entered into you, as opposed to that you achieved a climax with someone that you wanted to achieve a climax with, even if that person is yourself. So, I think really, I think the way we use ecstasy is maybe a little bit different, but I think it's about a spiritual awakening. There's a lot of tie into psychedelics and sort of getting into that higher realm of being able to reach reality or see spheres of reality, or seeing God, seeing the supernatural, seeing beyond the matrix, whatever. A lot of that is helped by psychedelics, mushrooms. Remember, wine and beer and things like that were a lot stronger than they are now.
Oh yeah, the wine was made way more fermented back then too,
for sure. And in fact, one of the reasons why people drank wine and beer so often and watered it down was to develop a tolerance for it, so that when they wanted to party, they really got it on. They could drink like Hercules.
I'm a baby. I could drink my light beers, my lagers and stuff, but when it comes to those IPAs or those dark beers or those stouts, those true beers, like I can't do it.
I famously prefer not to drink beer. I will, but I can't drink enough beers to, I probably could now because I drink so infrequently and I'm probably a lightweight. But one of the things I'm snooty about is liquor. But I'm also, like I said, a lightweight because I drink like maybe twice a year. So I'm an expensive date, but I'm a cheap expensive date on that. Like the 2 drinks will be expensive, but that's all I'll take. All right, my next was the Wendigo, and mostly because the Wendigo has turned into sort of like almost like a werewolf with deer antlers and that kind of thing, and that's not what it was. The Wendigo was, so its origins, at least with the word Wendigo, is from the Northwest North America, which probably means it also traveled from Siberia. But the legend is that it was a bunch of Native Americans or First Nations, whichever phrase you prefer, who got lost, or were trapped in the mountains, on a hunting party, and they ended up they ate each other, like the movie Alive. They got into cannibalism, and because that was taboo, it's taboo pretty much everywhere except a few places and a few cultures. The bad guys are always cannibals, and the bad guys are also eating babies, stealing and eating babies. Those are, all id. So they got transformed into creatures that could never die. They could never be satisfied. They were rapacious, gluttony, but they could never be full. And they were not like werewolves with antlers. They were more like what you saw the figures that were like trying to squeeze out of the wall in Pink Floyd The Wall, or like Edward Sfar's the Scream. They were almost like Slender Man. They were long, emaciated, stretched out people, skeletal. You could barely distinguish human features, but they were, 2 eyes, a place where there was a nose, a mouth, and they would wail, and they could only be satisfied by eating human meat, but they could never be satisfied. So it was a constant quest to.
What did they have? Brader Willie syndrome? Just keep eating and eating and never not know when they get full.
They were cursed. It was eternal damnation, but the damnation was also would befall any, wayward, soul that would encounter them. So the lesson is, it's not about, good or bad. You can suffer the fate no matter what, just by being unlucky, which is sort of true in life. But, if you want to come out like this, then, eat people. If you don't want to come out like this, don't eat people. Other bad things, so no cannibalism, no good, eat grass, eat tree bark, do whatever. or suffer in silence and die a noble death, but don't eat people. It was a tale against cannibalism, basically, and the curse of because even when they were eating, they were looking for their next meal, and their next meals were 24/7, 365. Keep doing the math.
Jeez, it's like an alcoholic with a beer. Like, I'm looking forward to my next beer. Like, I need my appetite right now.
You've been mentioning beer a lot this show. I'm starting to worry about you. Light beers or not?
No, I haven't had a beer today, though.
Oh,
I don't think I will have a beer today.
It is 2:20.
I've been drinking that.
But you're on the West Coast. It's AM where you are. I'm glad you didn't have a beer yet today. My goodness. I'm going to need to call the other Jeff, do an intervention.
Yeah. So this is nothing Native American. Because I swear, like, when I used to hear about Wendigo, I thought, isn't there like a Wendigo tribe, or maybe that's like something totally different?
It's probably something totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there are a lot of different tribes. I know the nations, peoples with lots of different words, and I'm sure there's ones. I mean, of course, there's a Winnebago.
Yeah.
I went to a camp called Winaki, so there's
you educated me a little bit, because I just knew that because I played this game called what was it called? Until Dawn, and the Wendigos were after you in that game, trying to kill you, and you're trying to survive. And it's like you said, they depict them with the horns and
but they're like zombies, our current zombies, which again, I use the word revenants a lot because there's a lot of creatures that could fall under revenants, but basically they're undead and hungry, and they're trying to kill you for one reason or another, or one.
Because it's like a zombie too, like what they depict zombies, and they never get full either, right? They just got to keep eating and eating and eating.
Exactly right. They're OG zombies, I suppose. I mean.
Does a vampire ever get full on blood, or does it always need its blood?
Well, the vampire. I don't know if the vampires on your list or not, but
no,
vampires. The modern version of a vampire can be satiated for a period of time, and that period of time depends. And now they can also sometimes they sleep for centuries or whatever. The whatever original vampire was, it was a slow morphing. And I've done shows on the vampires with my good friend, C. the Superior. We did 2 shows on vampires, one in literature and one elsewhere. But I would argue that the original descriptions of vampire is indecipherable from a skinwalker, from a revenant, from a witch, and from a zombie. They all sort of were the same thing that slowly became different things.
From a lawyer,
and whichever culture was doing that. Now, some involve. There's lots of creatures that were bloodsuckers that have now been cast as part of the vampiric family tree. But I mean, some of there's like no connection in to China in like to what was happening on in say Central Europe, but I don't know, maybe somewhere there was a root. I'm always amenable to that. I'm just not particularly amenable to the Graham Hancock notion that it was from Atlantis. I am more amenable to the Von Daniken that it was aliens, because aliens make more sense to me than some super cult, super society. But but again, I like Wyatt Earp more than Tombstone. So what do I know?
Well, we all got our likes, we all got our differences.
That's right. And speaking of likes, if you're watching, give us some likes, give us share, please give us subscribe, tell your friends. Here on the Sports Jedi Network, and right now Sports Jedi Media Network, there's lots of stuff. It's not just Garden of Thought. There's tons of wrestling content. Monday nights I do the MLW Files with my best friend, Mr. Thomas, erstwhile of MLW Wrestling. So we have an insider and the godfather of the Boumaye Fight Club. Kevin and I, Kevin's the producer, he's in the background. We're going to start doing an NXT review show. And I do a show called Out of Character, which is sort of taken over the Book of Black Gospel of Thomas, and it's expanded from just talking to people in wrestling to also in entertainment. So we did a show with Vinny Pacifico, a wrestler who's been in lots of horror movies, with one of his colleagues, co-workers, actress Amber Brooke, and she's going to come back on the Garden of Thought. And this week we have a gentleman coming on, Matt Provenza, who's working on a movie now, but he's also worked on Terrifier and stuff like that. So lots of fun stuff going on there. And I haven't given up on the wrestler stuff, and I haven't given up on PJ. I mean, total side story, but PJ is like trying to get me to go with him to Costa Rica, and I don't think I can really afford to go to Costa Rica.
This Jinder Mahal stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you're refusing someone Jinder Mahal.
No, it has nothing to do with that. I would love to go with Jinder Mahal. I also don't know, being who I am, that I can afford not to go, just because like it's a story for the rest of my life, because like some of the boys are going. I don't know who the boys are, and I think that the first definition of not being one of the boys is that you don't ask who the other boys are. But apparently there's a test. There's a vetting test. So the shaman has to pass you first. So I have not yet spoken to the shaman. So like the shaman may not pass me.
The shaman of sexy?
No, it's not it's like a shaman of like, well, psychedelics, I would imagine, and spiritual enlightenment and you know, and helping me reach my spiritual awakening potential.
Is it all right if I do some plugs at the end of the
Oh,
show?
groovy, baby. Yeah.
The end of the show. Haven't you listened to the show? This is a free plug zone, and I plugged you in the beginning as well, didn't I? Just don't name.
No, I got a list of people I got to plug.
No, we're not plugging every show. You plug your own shows.
Oh, come on. They're some of them are friends of us.
Yeah. When they have me on their shows, I plug their shows. So
they have been on your show.
Right, and I plug them, and I've gone on their shows, and they plug me. That's how it works. I don't need to list every goddamn show I've been on. I'd be here all day.
For a shout out today.
Listen, you just stick to your other three creatures here. We're done with Wendigos, right?
No, I did a bad thing on the list. I only did 4 because when I was going to do 5, I crossed off genies, so I only did 4. But I feel we're doing good with this.
Well, what's your 4th?
Golem.
Cool. Let's go.
Yes, Golem, baby. This is probably my
second
most
show I did Wrestling Super Lufisto.
All your plugs.
Our plugs. we're both part of the Wrestling Soup universe.
Hey, but only one of us is part of the actual Wrestling Soup network, so
I have no control over that.
I'm just busting balls. Love you,
and I assure you that's more because of Lou than it is because of me.
Yeah. But real quick,
I mean, one of us was a wrestler for 26 years. One of us sat on our ass most of our lives. Guess who's who? Sorry, go ahead.
A golem is a creature formed out of a lifeless substance such as dust, dirt, or mud. And it says also or earth. So I guess anything from the earth, just as long as it's lifeless, but aren't. I guess it couldn't be plants and stuff because that's what plants have life. So you have to stick to the dirt and the mud. And
it's interesting. Is the swamp thing a golem? I mean, this is an interesting philosophical debate we could have.
Yeah, I was kind of fascinated thinking about that. Yeah, because because there's 2 or 3 different golems, and the one that I was most associated with is the one from that famous German silent horror film from the 1915 and 1920s. He did a series of 3 of them. You know that golem film I'm talking about? It's a silent. You could watch it for free on YouTube if anyone's curious. Have you ever heard of a movie called Golem from 1915? I
don't think so, sir.
Yeah, it's basically so this guy resurrects from an amulet. He resurrects a golem, and the golem falls in love with his daughter. I think it was his daughter, or it was like a friend or something. And when the woman refuses to return the love to the golem, he just goes on like a murderous rampage. But it's a silent film. So
okay. Well,
I'm curious to see those one day, like Nosferatu and Golem. Silent films had their time.
Absolutely.
It's got to be a little patient with them.
I mean, it's interesting that golems are made of something that's considered dead. It's not alive. However, Adam and Eve were made from things, or at least Adam was made from, I think it's clay or dust.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Adam was mentioned in the research that I was doing. Yeah.
I mean, in Norse, it was Elb and Ask were the first people, and they were made out of driftwood. So by Odin and his two brothers. It's actually that story is pretty funny because Odin just makes them basically like as statues. He's like, and then he gets bored and walks off. One of his brothers, I forgot their names, then gives them sort of sentience or gives them the ability to move around, and he gets bored and walks off. And then the third brother's like, well, that better make them think. And so the third brother gives the ability to think and walks away, but also made of driftwood. And in the Sumerian or Babylonian, I mean, I think it's largely the same. So there were higher gods and lower gods, which is nothing unusual at all. And at some point, the lower gods were working for the high gods. And the lower gods are like, we're tired of doing this. So the high gods said, fair enough. You know, you've done the hard work. You built mountains and you build seas and things like that. So how about this? Why don't you make even another lower class of gods, which they did. And they were called the Gigi or Agegi. It was Egegi. And they revolted at some point after. They're like, we don't want to do this. They're like, fine, make something else. So basically, out of dirt and clay and whatever, they made humans to serve the gods. And
or Dirk, made it out of Dirk.
Right, and of course they made Dirk, of course, who still lives amongst us today, who may in fact be the last remaining Golem. He might be the king of the Golems for all we know. Of course, Golem, the name in Tolkien, I mean, maybe there's a relationship to the name, but there's no relationship in the character. And yeah, golems are basically Frankensteins, but not made out of dead organic materials. They're made out of inorganic materials and rose to, Golem of Prague was there to defend the Jewish people in the Jewish ghetto from their enemies. And the interesting thing about the Golem of Prague was on, I'll just say his head, I guess it's a he, was the Hebrew word for either truth or death. And I can't remember which one it is. It's sort of important because when you erased the first letter, and you could, because he's made of mud or whatever, and you could erase the word. And when you erase the first letter, if it was death, now it became truth. If it was truth, then it became death. So I'm going to guess that it was truth, and then you erased it and death, and then sort of like the fiend with his heal and hurt gloves, or how I wanted them to be. That once you unleash the death mode in the golem, that it enacted the death. But I'm not sure if I have that right. But I know the part about the letters. I just don't know which was the word before you wiped off the first letter. But I thought that was a very interesting thing, and that doesn't, and how, I don't know if the origin came from people recognize that in the Hebrew words that you could do that, or if the legend predated that, because Hebrew is a very old language, and the Hebrew we know now is not Old Hebrew, and that's not Proto-Hebrew, and Proto-Hebrew actually took their alphabet from Aramaic, which is even older, which is weird. Side note about Aramaic: Aramaic was one of the most used languages of the time, but the interesting thing is Aramaic was not the language of the conquerors; it was the language of the conquered. So while the Akkadians and the Babylonians and the Persians and even the Israelites and all sorts of other people, the Assyrians, Hittites, were conquerors, Aramaic, the language, was the lingua franca of the people. So it's interesting that that's the language that survived. Anyway, that's my little interesting Aramaic side note. But on that, I don't have much else to add about the golem, except that people often say,
I got a bunch.
But Frankenstein was like man playing God. This was sort of like Jewish mystical magic, like CK at the end, but that's more Kabbalistic, which is more like Middle Ages, like 10th century CE to 13th century CE and going forward. Obviously, if it's written in the Bible, it was older than that. So I'm not sure if it's a magical thing or it's a God did it thing.
So these creatures are always brought together by rituals and letters.
Well, that sounds like magic to me. Divination.
So yeah, you gotta, and that's how it's summoned, and it becomes a helper or a companion, and or a rescue of an imperial Jewish community. Originally, creating a golem was seen as a way to get closer to God. That's why people were doing it. Well, not everybody was doing it, but they were doing it. They're in 2 verses of the Bible, Psalm 139, and I didn't write down these verses, by the way, but
I was hoping you would
Psalm
sing
139 in
Sing it next time. Come prepared.
I know, shit. I only wrote freaking almost 6 pages of notes.
It's Sunday, for God's sake. You're not ready to sing a psalm? Come on.
And he's also in Pirkei Avot 5.9 or 5 verse.
It's in what?
It's, how do you say this word? It's Pirkei and then Avot, Avot, and then 5.9.
The 5.9.
I guess maybe I should have wrote them down because then we went in.
I don't know. We'll go with Pirkei Avot.
Yes.
I'm sure someone out there knows what it is. I am not that someone.
Yes. And he was also okay. This is another reason why I think I only know this version, the version of Golem that looks like stone, because of the movie, the silent movie, and then I don't know if you ever saw the Treehouse of Horror episode where Bard had a golem. I think it was Bard had a golem.
No, golem. But okay, so like a lot of us, I mean, to me, a golem is somewhere between the Sandman from Spider-Man when he's in a human form and the Thing from the Fantastic Four.
No, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's definitely a good way of putting it. For sure. And then it seems they also have the jinn-like qualities, or no, not jinn, but like genie-like qualities, where they have to be subservient to whoever summons them.
Right. Yes, they definitely serve their master, sort of like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. I mean, it's sort of the same story. Frankenstein is that story. The Golem is that story. It's like, you know, when you screw with magic, when you play with magic, you better know what you're doing, because if you don't, it's more powerful. You know, letting loose, you know, power. It's basically the theme of the movie Oppenheimer as well.
Oh, great movie. You still haven't seen that, by the way, huh?
No, I still haven't seen it. How do you know that I still haven't seen it?
Well, because we were movie talk when Richard Holiday put up a post about Christopher Nolan movies.
Yeah, that was weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
By the way, Richard Holiday, who refuses to interact with me, even though he did a few years ago, because I used to give him grief. He used to call himself the sole proprietor, and I'm like, and you know, his whole thing is that my father lawyer, and they're like, and he would always say my attorney, and they're like, it's your dad. He's like, my father lawyer. That was a joke, and he called himself the sole proprietor. I'm like, why? Your father lawyer would be very disappointed. You should be an LLC. You should be a limited liability company, not a sole proprietorship. Why would you want this liability? He's like, sole proprietor is more marketable. And I'm thinking to myself, why is sole proprietor more marketable than LLC or limited liability? Limited liability, Richard Holiday sounds better than sole proprietor, Richard Holiday. But anyway, yeah, rumor has it that he might be signed by WWE, so clearly he knows better than I do.
Yeah. I'll just watch out for that ID stuff, because...
Richard, I remember you. I remember you when...
Jeff can have before they were famous.
Damn right. I've been forgotten by so many people. I've been left in the dust by so many people. Don't worry. And you know what? When they fall back down again, you know who they're going to remember probably?
Well, see, it only took one for me. I wasn't going to go through that again. I was like, one, fucking done here. So you have way more patience than I do, Jeff.
No, Sean. I mean, Ramstein. I don't have more patience. Well, I do, because I'm Russian. So I have an endless repository or reservoir for suffering. But the other thing about me is that I don't learn from my mistakes uniformly, because I also suffer from hubris, and I don't think it's going to happen to me, even though many variations of it has happened to me and continue to happen to me. So basically, I'm an idiot. So
You're a glutton for punishment, as they say.
Except I hate punishment, but yeah,
But you kind of like it.
I'm self-destructive.
You're that dog that gets slapped by his owner but keeps coming back.
Listen, as Tony Soprano said to Dr. Melfi, we're all our own worst enemy.
Yeah. Oh, don't even get me started on Dr. Melfi. Oh, hey now. Hey, yo.
All right. My bad. Back to golems.
I've been running through Sopranos lately, by the
Me
way.
too.
So we have a golem. We have a Polish version of the golem.
Ooh,
That was,
okay.
it's called the Golem of Chelm. Chelm.
Is he made of kielbasa?
I wish, but it was summoned by Elijah of Chelm.
Oh, okay. That's not Elijah the prophet, a different Elijah.
No. And it's not Walk with Elijah from TNA either.
No, certainly not. And not Elijah Burke, the Pope.
D'Angelo De Niro. And then this one I didn't this one you kind of covered. The Golem of Prague. Is it Prague or Prague? I think you said Prague.
It's Prague. But yeah, go ahead and say what you have, because you actually took notes on it. I'm just going from memory.
Well, just basically I wrote down it was created out of clay in the Vitavian Vitava, Vitavan River, which is one of the longest rivers in the Czech.
Yeah, and the only reason I know that is because I got it wrong on a trivia question today, last night on YouTube. I thought it was the Elba.
So it's a 200. This blew my mind because I didn't know, but a 268-mile long river.
There's a lot of rivers in Europe. That's why there's all these cities.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to my buddy yesterday. I was like, I'm so jealous, like, of Europe and other countries. Like, yeah, we got, oh yeah, cool. We got the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty and like all this thing. Over there, they got freaking cathedrals and freaking like things that have been around since the 1500s, the 1600s, even before then, like ancient stuff that hasn't been touched. You know?
So do we. It's just you have to go to Hopewell and Cahokia and places like that to see what are trivially called the mounds, but they're not mounds. They're giant earthworks. They're basically pyramids. So we have lots of cool stuff here as well. And if you just go down to Mesoamerica and South America, you got Teotihuacan and Machu Picchu, and just like there's so much stuff down there. So every place has its stuff, but yeah, obviously in Europe there's more things that are near and dear to our hearts because we were raised on European history. So I'm
jealous. My brother's in Europe right now. He got to spend a week in Paris, and then he got to do 2 weeks in Armenia.
All right, very cool. All right, so what does the Prague of the Golem of Chom do?
I wish I knew what the Golem of Chom did, because I stopped my notes for some reason. Why did I do that, Jeff?
I don't know. Maybe you fell asleep. It's all the beer.
No, can't drink this early, like you said.
Well, I don't know when you took the notes.
Yeah. Oh, that is good. Well, these notes I saved Golem for last, so these were last, and that's why these ones have a little bit less. But I will close and say that Golems have appeared in 16 works of TV and movies, including, like I said, Simpsons. They have their own movie, silent movies, and then about 15 works of literature. And then this was an interesting note I found. The creators of Marvel, the comic guys, Jack Kirby and the other guy, I'm blanking on his name, actually said Captain America is a form. It's like his own. It's like a golem. He's like a golem. They said.
Okay. I mean,
they didn't get into detail. The like what I saw was like a little reference. So I didn't get, maybe they went into deeper detail as to why. I just saw a very little short answer. So
okay, creature of man, I suppose. I mean, they were both Jews, so they were probably influenced by the Jewish superhero or the golem. Samson wasn't available. Sort of Jewish Hercules. Less sleeping with the enemy, literally. All right. Since you went to 4 and I went to 6, I'm going to do short on my fifth, which is Kraken. And I mostly pick Kraken for one reason, because most people know Release the Kraken from the Clash of the Titans movies, which are Greek mythology. The Kraken is by no means from Greek mythology. They imported the Kraken from Norse mythology and Northern European mythologies. The Kraken is a giant squid. It's not like, the sort of beasts that they made. The only similarity is that it lives in water and that it has sort of the beak, which is what an Architeuthis has, which giant squids have beaks, with their version of teeth. So also the Kraken and was the sigil and the spirit animal of the Iron Islands in Game of Thrones, where Theon Greyjoy was from. They would say, their whole thing was
squids have beaks.
That which is dead cannot be killed. So sort of a little immortality thing there as well. And of course, the sigil was with the tentacles going in the directions in a spin wheel, which has sort of eternally been a sign of fertility in the cycle of life. So that's all I have on Krakens. I don't know if you want anything to add.
You said squids have
It's unfair.
Yep. The big ones.
Wow, that makes sense, because I didn't think all squid. Now I'm thinking of that Pokemon squid and had the beak, and I always wondered why. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I know the Seattle hockey team, Kraken. So
I didn't know there was a Seattle hockey team.
I'm not even a big hockey guy, but the Kraken. It's just when you hear the Kraken, it's like the Kraken, like you said, release the Kraken.
Like I always say, I'm a wrestling fan. I don't watch sports.
Oh no, hang on. You're that special wrestling fan. You're that wrestling fan that says he doesn't watch it, even though you kind of watch it.
No, I don't watch sports. I didn't watch a single second of the World Cup.
No, I said you're a wrestling fan that says you don't watch it, but you kind of do watch it.
I watch wrestling? I watch way too much wrestling. Yeah. But I often will fast forward through the middle parts of match. Like, I don't watch wrestling for the wrestling for the most part. It's like, to me, it's the least interesting part of wrestling. Listen, if the Avengers was all fighting, it would be a boring movie. The Avengers is interesting because you care about the characters and the story. So then when the fights are there, they're important. And that's how I feel about wrestling. So unless it's an important fight, I'm not particularly interested in it. I like to know who wins and loses and how and whatever. But I've seen it all before 50 times by now. I've been watching wrestling for 50 years plus. So it's not like they're showing me anything new. And if they're showing me something new, it's probably something stupid that they shouldn't be doing. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So my last creature is the Cyclops, and the plural of Cyclops is Cyclopes, but singular is in fact Cyclops. Cyclops is considered a giant, but it's a special kind of giant. Depending on which story you go by, every story the Cyclops are Poseidon's children, so they're demigods as well. But the actual giants in Greek mythology are actually an entirely different race. And actually in the movie The Odyssey, there's some giants in it that are other than the Cyclops. But in the creation story, the giants were created the same time as the Olympians accidentally. They were all created by the castration of Uranus. Actually, the giants were created before the Olympians in this regard. They were created. The Olympians sort of were the children of the Titans. Though Aphrodite was created at this time, even though she's considered Olympian, she's earlier in the retold chronology, but she's actually an import of more Eastern gods like Astarte and Ishtar. So it's strange. It's sort of like a retrofit. Anyway, in some cases, there's only three of them, three brothers. And they are probably most famous from the Odyssey. Polyphemus being the Cyclops in question that, sort of traps Odysseus's men, of course, because men were violating hospitality, which is a lot of what the Odyssey is about. Frankly, it's a lot of what the Old Testament is about. The rules of hospitality seem to be more important than most other rules in lots of ancient tomes, including more important than like protecting your wives and daughters and friends and shit like that. Kind of weird, but I guess not if you understand that it's always a state of warfare and the world was patriarchal, and everybody was property. Anyway, a little bit of an aside there. Anyway, one eye. That's Cyclops from the X-Men. He's got his visor. So it looks like he's only got one giant eye, and they're not so smart. And famously, Odysseus sharpens a stick, and he and his men, after a few of them get eaten, again, cannibals. Not cannibals because they're demigods, though Odysseus was a demigod. His men were men. Stab him in the eye, blind him, but they still can't move the rock at the cave. And every day, Polyphemus opens up the cave to let his sheep out to graze and pasture, and every night he brings them back in, and he closes the rock behind him, and all the men can't move it. They try as they might, and even though Odysseus is a demigod and very strong, he's not nearly that strong. He's like a couple generations. He's like a semi-watered down demigod. I think both of his parents are mostly human. He's not like Hercules, where Zeus is his dad, and which is probably why he's the center of the story there, because he's probably the closest demigod to men out of all the Greek heroes. But that's just my take on it as an amateur. Anyway, the way without getting too long into it, he's not so smart. The Cyclops asks Odysseus his name. Odysseus says, my name is no one. And in furtherance, the plan that they hatch after losing about 5 or 6 guys to being the meal for Polyphemus is when the Cyclops opens the cave door, the men all go on the undersides of the sheep, hang on. I guess these sheep are very big because like they're megafauna, or they're demigod sheep that need to feed the Cyclops. And anyway, as the Cyclops touches all the sheep as they go out, he's only touching the top of them and doesn't realize that there's men hanging out from underneath. So that's how they escape. And when the Cyclops realizes it, he's crying out, and his brother's like, "What's wrong? Who hurt you?" And Polyphemus yells, "No one has hurt me. No one has blinded me." So his brother's like, "All right, well, we don't need to come help him." And in the escape, of course, Odysseus, because he has hubris and pride, and because he's a hero and needs his name to live in glorious infamy, as they're sailing away, he says, "I am Odysseus, king of Ithaca. I am the one who escaped you and foiled your plot." So, of course, that leads Polyphemus to run to Dad and give the proper name, and Poseidon, opts to make Odysseus's life a living hell. Yes, it's been such a joy up until that point. So that's the most famous Cyclops story I am aware of. I know the Cyclops appeared in a bunch of Sinbad movies. Again, probably an import, just story-wise into that. I can't think of any other place where there's been a Cyclops per se.
Wasn't there a Cyclops in that movie, Jason and the Argonauts?
Yeah, but Jason and the Argonauts is also in the Greek world. So yeah, and they too were going on an epic voyage on a quest, and it was the hero's quest. Jason and the Argonauts takes place like well before the Trojan War is supposed to. Like the timeline in Greek stories is not of particular importance, except Hercules was on the Argonauts, and Hercules was either long dead or long achieved apotheosis by the time the Trojan War took place. And of course, the Trojan War was told for hundreds of years, but written by Homer. Most people think between 2800 and 2600 BC. So I'm sorry, not 2800. I think 800 and 600 BC. So like 2800 years ago, 2600 years ago, written. brings us back to the head of the conversation or before the conversation where we were saying, everyone's upset that Christopher Nolan's not a purist. And while I can see those arguments, nobody on earth knows what the original story or stories were, because they were oral traditions told by bards, over centuries in different places, and then written down again and then translated and retranslated. So,
anytime you do something that's based off a book or actual fact that taken in time when, it's passed down from, like, there's going to be somebody's going to be upset about it being depicted wrong.
Right.
There's always
I will add one thing to that. In the Greek world, even back then, the Greek world was sort of the backward sea that went as far as Persia in the east, maybe even a little bit further, encompassed North Africa, encompassed all of the Aegean. Actually, where Jason and the Argonauts went to was in modern day Georgia, the city. I mean, not to say the country in Europe. So all of that, Anatolia and the Pontic Steppe, all of that part of the Greek world, Italy, southern France, the entire Mediterranean, Spain, Portugal, all of that, all of the islands part of the Greek world, which includes people from Egypt, and Libya was the word for Africa. So to think that Zendaya can't be Athena and that's not part of the Greek world, it's silly because she's a goddess and it was birthed by Zeus's head.
Take me down to Africa.
Bless
the rains. Take me to Africa. We'll bless the rains down in Africa.
We'll bless the rains. One of the greatest songs of all time. I will. Anyway, but it's the entire Greek world, and they even traded it with. They got tin from what's now the British Islands. So anyway, and Troy is in modern day Turkey. It was Anatolia then, or whatever they call it, Ilium, which is why you get the word the Iliad. Anyway, that's what I have on Cyclopses. I don't know if you have anything more for that.
I got a question on Cyclops. Could they also be related to ogres and trolls?
I think there's a case. I mean, some people
will argue to you.
I think some people will argue to you that all giants are related in some way, and I think to a certain extent, there's probably some truth to that. In that, what are we scared of besides the other beasts and animals? And once you figure out a way to defend yourselves from the beasts and animals, what's the easiest animal to make up? It's combinations of those animals make them bigger and make men bigger. Whether that's because they're afraid of gorillas and other apes, including mega apes that were a thing. I forgot the name, but I think, or if it's some memory of, when the first Homo erectus tried to go out of Africa and the Neanderthals bottlenecked them, basically, in the Sinai Desert and in the little southwestern corner of Israel, beat them back. Maybe it's some memory back to that 70,000 years ago, a tale as old as time. But I don't know. Everyone puts a little variations on it. But there's always been boogeymen and boogie women. And remember, people died very young. Most kids, a lot of women died in childbirth. Most kids died as infants or toddlers. Very few people made it past 18. It's probably a whole lot of combinations to it, but a giant's a pretty easy monster, and also it's very easy to gods used to be depicted in paintings and steelworks and bas reliefs and petroglyphs as being bigger than men, and sometimes with horns and sometimes with wings to show that they could fly and they came from above, and what's it because they really had wings, and a lot of that has influenced our pictures of things now. So I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to say probably not any more than a dragon is related to a snake.
Yeah, the lizard family. Yeah.
So yeah, we've gone almost 2 hours, which I think is plain long. I have done my plugs during the course of the show. You can do your plugs. Say hello to all your friends. I'm not going to put any restrictive rules on you.
I'll keep them shorter than the ones I do on my show. I just want to plug.
You're going to plug me in this also, and I mean that in a promotional way, not a.
I'll
Gimpy
plug
way.
you all right, pal.
Yeah, not a Pulp Fiction way.
The plugging comes when we all get off the live.
Right.
No, this Friday I'm going to be doing a show with Minorities Report on my channel and my co-host Jeff Uso. We're going to go off the cuff when it's going to be banana shit, batshit crazy. And this Saturday, I'm going to have a lawyer on my show. You might know him. He's the guy next to me over here.
Oh,
His name's Jeff, I think. I think he goes by Dose, Jeff. Jeffrey Dosage. I don't know. No,
double dosage.
Evil Dose, Jeff Whitman. He'll be on my show because it's crossover week, baby. He'll be coming over. We're going back to our old day Saturday just for you. We've been on Fridays lately, but just for you, we're going back to Saturday to accommodate for you. And I think we might be going back to Saturdays for a couple weeks. There was just times we had to do it on Fridays. And
let's answer this question. It says, which mythological creature do you think has had the biggest impact on pop culture?
Shrek, I guess. Ogres.
I'm going to go with.
I
think I'm going to say. I mean, there's a pretty good case for giants. There's a pretty good case for dragons, but you know what? I'm going to go with witches.
Oh, we're going. I thought we were just going with our list. Okay. Yeah, I would say witches. Or damn, I got a cheating answer. I got like two. I would say like witches or werewolves.
Okay.
So you see a lot of stuff depicted about werewolves.
All right. So you were plugging my appearance on your show, which is a perfectly wonderful plug. So
yes. So yes, no, that was so that's going to be Saturday. I forgot the time we scheduled it for. We'll get back. No, I think it was oh god.
Well, you haven't told me the time yet, so maybe you haven't scheduled it.
Okay, so maybe it's hard because we're going back to Saturday, so I wanted to make sure. But yes, it's got to be a little bit earlier, right? Because
you know how they can find out. They can follow me at dose_evil. They can follow the Sports Jedi Network on X or many platforms. They can follow you at Rams Fan on the X and probably multiple other platforms as well.
And whoever is the one followers that keeps unfollowing me and following me and unfollowing me and following me, I don't know who you are, but is this a game you're playing? I don't freaking know. And I got that dirty blue check mark, Jeff. I didn't want it, but it's so I can get live on Twitter. So yes, now Rams Fan comes with that disgusting blue check mark.
Listen, I've been tempted to do it myself, and the reason is so that I can actually send messages to wrestlers to invite them to come on the show. Because because
some have that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but most have a blue check mark, and you can't reach them otherwise. I haven't done it yet, and I'm tempted to solely for that purpose. I'm never going to monetize my X. I have maybe 1,500 followers, and I'm divided over 2 accounts. So anyway, so don't feel bad about doing it. There's a reason they make that feature available on X. It's
not that anybody does it that's bad. Just some people I feel like abuse that blue check mark.
Of course, people abuse that blue check mark, but X is making us overthink it, and they make it something that they're trying to sell it all the time for a reason, so that you can do certain things like go live on X, like contact people who you wouldn't normally be able to contact unsolicited or uninvited. So, they know what they're doing, and just because you had to play into it doesn't make you a bad guy. It just means that it also serves a function for you. And if it's not worth doing, you'll reevaluate and over the course of the next couple of years.
Yep. So yeah, those are just my 2 plugs. Just Minority Report guys on my channel Friday and Jeff on Saturday.
Yeah, Minority Reports, first of all, I've been on your show a bunch of times, and I appreciate you, and I know a bunch of you have been here, so thank you for all that. But I have noticed how you've got Rich Dow on all the time, and I don't like it when people lap me more than once. Lap me like this is like Captain America lapping the Falcon, in the Winter Soldier. So, I know I'm a terrible guest. I know that I sabotage the chat and I make things all wonderfully terrible there. And, I know I'm not a draw, but, You gotta throw me a bone every now and then. I don't need much, but I need a little. I need a little love. I need a little love.
He needs a passing from a shaman too, so you can go with PJ Black.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that too. But but that's entirely different. Listen, I would understand if a shaman would find me spiritually wanting. I would totally get it. Jinder is currently under evaluation or has either passed or failed by now. So I don't know. The only other person I know who's going other than PJ and Jinder Plan is Tom LaRufa, who was a guest on the Book of Black probably like 2 years ago. He's a French wrestler. I'm assuming he's going to pass because having spoke to him, he's extremely spiritual. I've never spoken to Jinder. I have pictures from his wedding, but I wasn't there. PJ was there. But a lot of people thought I was because they were like live pictures from the time, and I guess I could understand why. I'm like, no, like PJ Black is sadly, he's probably like my best friend. I mean, it's like the two people I talk to most in the world in real life is PJ and Mr. Thomas. I mean, Lou is probably third. So, I mean, I don't know what that says about me. But,
tell you what, I want you to get an interview with Beastman if you can.
Beastman, the guy who goes Husk.
Yeah.
I think that's probably attainable. After all, he is an MLW, and the MLW Files is the only show that I'm aware of that covers MLW.
I've seen him in GCW, and I know, he just popped up in there.
Well, maybe he's someone that you could solicit to be your co-host. So,
you think I have these magical powers?
You have a blue check mark. You can. I don't think he does, so you could reach him.
Well, there was some the cool thing about GCW wrestlers, a lot of them is you don't need a blue check mark for them to acknowledge you.
Listen, if you are a GCW wrestler or fan or someone who deals with the production or works with the ring crew or whatever it is, and you're interested in being a co-host, Rams Fan is looking to do a GCW show. He loves
not
GCW.
to step on Game Changer podcast because they do excellent work, by the way. I don't know if you know.
Listen, I'm not saying there's none others in the world. I'm just saying that you want to do one. You love independent wrestling. You watch tons of it. And if someone wants to do it, he has at least 3 platforms. He has his own YouTube channel. He's got the Sports Jedi Network where he can do it. A Sports Jedi Media on YouTube right now. Sports Jedi Network everywhere else, and he's got the Wrestling Soup and Friendos platform. So so he's got at least 3 platforms that can triple your exposure if you are a wrestler or a videographer or a photographer.
And I got a lawyer on retainer in case anything happens.
You don't have me on retainer. So don't lie. Don't lie to the people out there. There's no attorney-client privilege here.
There's something I hate to break to you. Don Stoney is not a real lawyer. So, break that bubble. No, I figured I'd save you the trouble before you book him. It's just a running joke.
Well, the people at Spitball Media treat him like he was. No, but I thought he was. I was trying to book him.
No, it's a running joke.
That's terrible. Well, there goes the one person who said yes to my panel of the Wrestling Lawyers podcast concept. But being that I wanted 4, I wasn't that close to fruition. Anyway, in any event, I've talked enough. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you. If you tuned in for the first time to listen to Rams Fan, thank you for that. Please subscribe to Garden of the Flock podcast. Please subscribe to Sports Jedi Network podcasts on audio. Please subscribe to Sports Jedi Network. Follow them on the Twitter. Sports Jedi Network on YouTube. That one is hacked, but we hope to get it back. But Sports Jedi Media Network is live, and we're trying to rebuild that. It's been a bit of a struggle, so please come there. Please follow Rams Fan at Rams Fan, and his podcast, his YouTube channel is Soup du Jour. Is it Wrestling Soup du Jour?
It's Soup du Jour. Yeah, I feel like I'm not a big enough boy where I can add Wrestling Soup in there. I just stick to SmackDown Soup du Jour is mainly what it's called.
And his Twitter is at @RamsFan_ Sean SEAN.
You know, it's all these other Rams fans on YouTube. I've been Rams fan since like 2005, so I don't know where the hell you all came from. I didn't start seeing you till recently. So. I've been a Rams fan of the football team even longer, but on YouTube, I've been Rams fan forever. So. But anyways, I had to get my ego out of the way there.
Weird brag, but okay. All right. So everyone, hope you enjoyed it. hope there's something different. And you'll hear from me later in the week. Tomorrow, MLW Files at 6:05. Tuesday, NXT review show at probably 10:05. And Wednesday with Matt Provenza from Horror Movie, making a movie right now on Out of Character. And at some point, if you're on Wrestling Soup, Lou and I, we will do the LFG episode 10 or 11 episode, and we will watch the episode that's on tonight some point this week, and we'll get to that. So thanks, everyone.